Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Lorelei Weimer with the Duneland Exchange Club, and we're excited to be hosting one of our membership meetings. Today, we have two special guests with us, which is Kevin Rospierski. Am I saying that correctly, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then Chad Compton. So Kevin is with the Porter Police Department and Kevin is with the Chesterton Fire Department. So first of all, Maria, a huge thank you to you because you were able to coordinate all of this and then have been working with both the departments to get them here tonight. So I really appreciate your time in doing that. Also, we have made some small donations to the police departments as well as the fire departments. We know it's not a lot, but we just definitely want to contribute to the work that you guys are doing and being able to give you some of those, maybe extra funds that you can use for either educational purposes or how you see fit in terms of what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight, let's go ahead and start with Chad. I'm going to highlight you, Chad, and let you introduce yourself. Let us know kind of a little bit of background of how you got into the position that you are today. The other thing that we would like to talk to you about is fire safety. If there were some things that you could get all of us as homeowners to do to keep our houses safe, what are those things that we should be doing? And then if you can just kind of share with us about the calls that you guys get. I think we'd probably be surprised by some of the calls that you respond to, and it's not always fire. There's a lot of other calls that you take on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and then Chad, when you get done, we will open it up for question and answers from our members, and then I'll let you kind of go back to your office just in case you get a call, and then we'll go ahead and merge on to Kevin. So with that, welcome, Chad, and again, thank you for your time tonight.
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Chad Compton. I am an engineer EMT with the Chesterton Fire Department. Engineer is just a fancy term for chauffeur or driver, basically. I'm the fire engine operator. So if we have a fire, it's my job to drive us there, get us there safely, and then run the truck as far as the pump and control where the water goes and all of that fun stuff. If it's not a fire call, a lot of times my job is just to drive there and then assist in any way possible. I have been in the fire service for going on 20 years. I started out as a volunteer firefighter with the Washington Township Fire Department down on the east side of Valpo. I was there for a number of years. I have a degree in fire science from Vincennes University. And to be honest with you, I started in the fire service because I was a little bit of an adrenaline junkie as a kid. I like to do things that seemed dangerous or whatever, and running into a burning building definitely constitutes dangerous. So that's kind of where I got started. I've been here with the Chesterton Fire Department this is my 12th year here, full-time as a full-time firefighter for the Chesterton Fire Department. And yeah, I mean, as far as calls go, we run a little bit of everything. One memorable, I don't want to say funny call, but different call was a kitten that had wandered into the engine compartment of a car at a gas station. And we spent 15 or 20 minutes trying to get the kitten out. Kevin will probably talk about how all we do is rescue cats from trees because police officers and firefighters love each other. But in all reality, we do have a really good working relationship with the Chesterton Police Department and the Porter Police Department. We work pretty close with both of those guys and girls. But yeah, so we don't really do cats in trees, but we do cats in cars on occasion, things like that. As far as fire safety, last year rather, 2020, obviously everybody knows is really interesting. We didn't get a chance to do a whole lot of fire safety stuff, so this will probably be good for everybody. As far as tips go, from our standpoint, smoke detectors are probably the best thing that you can do in your house. Have a smoke detector, at least one on every floor. I would personally advocate for one in every room with the exception of maybe the kitchen, just because they tend to go off a little bit more. At least in my house it would. And then carbon monoxide detectors for sure are a great idea. Again, one on every floor. There's different models as far as smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. You can get separate ones. Some companies make combination detectors. I would also recommend strongly, especially for people with children, is making sure that your kids sleep with the doors closed at night. it makes an absolutely huge difference as far as smoke and fire damage, whether the bedroom door is opened or closed. That's one of those things that doesn't really get talked about very much. You know, everybody talks about changing your smoke detectors and your batteries when you change your clocks and things like that. But sleeping with the bedroom door closed is not something that normally gets mentioned. And you can, a quick Google search will show the difference between a house fire where the bedroom door was open and what the bedroom looks like, and a house fire where the bedroom door was closed. And the difference is literally night and day. So that's one of the biggest personal things that I try and point out to kids when they come to the firehouse and parents when they come to the firehouse. And another important detail is to have a family meeting place. For years, we've harped on get low and go, you know, crawl out of the house, you know, feel the door with your hand, that sort of thing. But we didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on what to do once you get outside the house. For us, from our standpoint, one of the first questions we're going to ask, and in fact, one of the questions the dispatcher is going to ask when you call 911 is, anybody still in the house? And if a kid thinks they're going to meet at the neighbor's house and mom and dad are at the tree in the front yard or something like that, they may say, oh no, Tommy's still inside, when in fact he's not. Or they may not, he may still be inside and nobody knows for sure. So having a family meeting place and telling your family, say, something solid, you know, obviously you don't want to use your car because your car may not always be there, but your mailbox, the tree in the front yard, the flagpole, the neighbor's front porch, things like that that aren't going to move, that are easily found and can be easily gotten to by anybody that's ambulatory anyway. So those are my fire tips for the year.
So Chad, what would you say is the percentage of fire calls that you guys respond to? And then what are the other calls that you guys are responding to that maybe we wouldn't realize?
So last year in 2020, we ran 1,575 calls for service at the Chesterton Fire Department. That's down about 200 or 300 calls from the previous years. I know 19 off the top of my head for sure. We were in the 1,800 calls. And part of that was because of COVID. People were afraid to call 911 or afraid to go to the hospital. So things that they might have normally called 911 for that weren't necessarily a big deal, they just didn't call for. So that reflected in our call volume. I'm looking at the totals here from last year. We had 30 fire incidents, and that could be anywhere from a structure fire, full-on house fire like we had a couple last week, or that could be food that was burned on the stove, or a small trash can fire, things like that, where it could have gotten bad quickly, but due to the actions of the homeowners, and sometimes Kevin and law enforcement and those guys show up a little bit quicker than we can. Their smaller cars get around a lot faster than our big fire trucks do. So it could be anywhere from a full-on house fire to something small that got put out real quick. The bulk of what we do last year, 65% of the calls we ran were assists to the ambulance, emergency medical assistance. And any more in this job, that's the majority of what we do. Luckily for everybody, fires aren't nearly as prevalent as the name of the department suggests, as the fire department. We're now more or less a fire and EMS department. While Chesterton Fire does not have its own ambulance, we work closely with Porter Hospital, now Northwest. I apologize.
Northwest Community. I think it's Northwest Community.
Their new name, but so they run the ambulance for the area, and we assist them on quite a few calls a year. And then a lot of other things, hazard conditions, no fire, could be carbon monoxide. Somebody's detector goes off, and we show up, and we have special monitors that will tell us what carbon monoxide, if there is any. A lot of times, I just pressed a button. Sorry, I don't know what I did. A lot of times, the detectors will be going off, and they'll just have malfunctioned. Another point to note about smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors is they are generally only good for 10 years. So if your smoke detectors have been in your house since it was built in 2003, they are most likely expired and should be replaced. So some of those hazard conditions could be carbon monoxide or natural gas leaking, something like that, where there's not actually any fire. We get calls frequently when somebody's digging maybe a fence post or things like that, and they strike a natural gas line in the yard that was either not marked because they didn't call 811 or it was marked inaccurately. We get calls all the time for people whose smoke detectors are chirping or going off because they have malfunctioned, and we'll go and help them track down which detector is malfunctioning or why it's doing what it's doing, and do the best we can to fix them. A lot of times we carry spare smoke detectors in the engine with us, and we'll hand out free smoke detectors. Every year we get carbon monoxide detectors from the group is escaping me now, but we get dozens of carbon monoxide detectors to give out on calls donated to us every year. And I apologize if anybody is in that group that I can't think of the name off the top of my head now, but another local community group. False alarms, we get plenty of false alarms. Anywhere that has a fire detection system or suppression system, it's not hard to trigger those. Everybody's probably had open the bathroom door after a hot shower and the steam sets your smoke detector off, or food on the stove, or any number of things. A lot of times, depending on the type of smoke detector, even a bug, we find ladybugs and stink bugs and all kinds of bugs inside smoke detectors that have set them off on accident, things like that.
What would you say, Chad, is with the main house fires that you get? Like, what causes majority of the house fires?
It's hard to say. It can be any number of things. A lot of times we'll see faulty electrical wiring be a pretty large culprit. We get a decent amount of chimney fires, or fires that were started from a fireplace or firebox that hasn't been maintained or has gotten, as it aged, it's broken down and fires escape the firebox. Sometimes we'll see cars that somebody was out driving around and ran to the store or whatever the case may be, came home, parked their car in the garage, and something had malfunctioned in the car and it caught on fire.
Oh, wow.
Knocked over candles, things like that. So
yeah, I think one time we were talking to a somebody came to speak to our club years ago, and they said they're not a fan of candles. Candles, they just really wish people wouldn't use them.
They can be very, very dangerous. A lot of times now you'll see candles in jars, which are a lot harder to tip over, which are much more safe. However, if you throw a article of clothing on top of it or something like that, it could still be an issue.
What about like the two fires that just happened? I know you said the one on Burdick is still under investigation, but you responded to the other one. What was the cause of that one? Did you say 4th Street?
On 5th Street, yes.
5th Street, okay.
So we just found out today, it was also, in fact, an electrical fire that had started in the garage by some faulty wiring. And in that particular house had an interesting layout. It was a custom built house, and there was a lot of what we call void spaces. So there's a lot of like attic spaces and things that weren't really used for the house. And fire's really good at hiding in attic spaces like that. And we chase it around for a while, and we have to tear out a bunch of walls to make sure we get it all. And in this particular case, it had started from the garage and spread throughout into the upstairs. And we tore out nearly every shred of ceiling in the house, trying to track it down and make sure we got it all out before we left. Because the last thing we want to do is leave and have to come back later because we didn't get it all.
So how does somebody get alerted? I mean, how do you know if you're going to, I mean, electrical is kind of scary because it's all hidden behind the walls. I mean, how would you know that it's an electrical fire is even started?
Just like any other fire is going to produce smoke. And with working smoke detectors, it'll give you the earliest detection possible. In this particular case, the owners of the home were at home. They had just returned from a trip and had gone back out to the garage for something and found all the smoke and whatnot, and was able to get everybody out except for one dog. We did help one of the family dogs out once we got there. She was terrified and hiding in the corner. And so we had to go in and get her and help her out. But other than that, everybody got out safely.
What about when you think about the houses, what's the percentage of houses who don't have the smoke detectors? And what do you think is the percentage of the houses that are not changing their batteries like they're supposed to?
Unfortunately, we find in a lot of times, and usually after the fact, and by after the fact, I mean after a fire, that there are a lot of people, and I couldn't put a percentage number on it because it's really hard to track because, like I said, usually it's after they've had a fire incident that we discover that there were no working smoke detectors in the home. But it's unfortunately more often than not, house fires don't have working smoke detectors. And then everybody's heard their smoke alarm chirp, usually at 2 o'clock in the morning because the battery's going dead. A lot of times people just remove the battery. Now, in newer construction homes, all of the smoke detectors are by code wired together. So if one goes off, they all go off, and the battery in them is just kind of a backup. So as long as you have power, the smoke detector will still work. But those batteries are in there in case you lose power for some reason. And then when you lose power, a lot of times people start using different means of keeping warm. If you have a fireplace that may not be in the best in the best shape, and that's when it's really important to have working smoke detectors.
And then my last question, then I'm going to open it up to our members, is what are some of the needs that you guys have at the fire department in terms of, things that you could use either for educational materials or just things that that are in need to make you do your job better?
Could you repeat the beginning of that question real quick?
Yeah, what kind of needs do you guys have at the fire department in terms of like more equipment that you need or things for education? I didn't know if there was any specific needs that you have at the fire department.
As far as fire education goes, I think we have an excellent program. Typically, the kindergarten classes at most of the Duneland schools come to us at the firehouse, and they get to tour the firehouse, like we talked about a little bit earlier. And the kids just tend to really, really enjoy that. And then at the 7th grade level, we go to the school and have a 3-day program that we teach at the school as far as fire prevention. And that's when we've kind of discovered that juvenile fire setters tend to be in that middle school age range. And so we have targeted that specific range as the area to kind of hit with, here's some information on why this isn't a good idea and the outcomes of the possible outcomes of your actions if you were to choose to play with matches and things like that. As far as fire apparatus, we've been really, really lucky, with the exception of one of our newer fire engines that we lost to an accident back in September, I believe. We have an awful lot of new apparatus, which is surprising because one of those engines, a new engine, costs in the vicinity of $500,000 right now. We have a newer ladder apparatus. Unfortunately for us, we're a small department in a small community. The thing that we probably need the most is more manpower. And that's, and I think you probably go to any agency in the country and they're going to tell you the same thing, even in the city of Chicago, where they have thousands of firefighters on the job. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, the more hands we can get at a structure fire, the better, the safer everybody's going to be, us and the general public.
I lied. I had one more question before I turn it over to the club. Is Chesterton the only one of the tri-town communities that have a paid fire department? Like, so is Porter a volunteer fire department, and is Burns Harbor a volunteer fire department?
Right. So Chesterton is technically a combination fire department. So we have 17 full-time members, paid full-time members, and then right now we have 2 active volunteer members, and somewhere in the vicinity of 4 what we call reserve members. And the reserve members don't typically go on calls. A lot of them are retired members of the department that still want to be involved. And so if we have a big fire, they'll come down and help us clean up and things like that. But they've kind of hung up the bunker boots, per se, as far as going out and doing the actual firefighting. The town of Porter, Jay Craig is the fire chief over there. He is paid. And I believe he's the only one, and Kevin can probably speak more to that. And then in Burns Harbor, their fire chief and their deputy fire chief are both paid, but the deputy fire chief he also works for the street department. So it's kind of a combo deal. And then everybody else in the department is volunteer. And then most departments, and I can't speak for either one of them, but most departments in the area do pay their members like per call and for trainings, a small stipend. You know, it's nothing they're going to make a living on, but they do get a little bit at the end of the year.
Okay. Well, this was great, Chad. So I am now going to open it up to our members. So if any of you have specific questions that you want to ask Chad before we let him go, so especially since he's on duty and he could be getting a call tonight. So I will open it up now if anybody has any questions. And if you do have a question, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Chad. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. So I'm a huge fan of fire departments. The month after my kindergartner went through the fire safety program, we had a house fire.
Oh, no.
And he came home really gung-ho. So we had made the little floor plan and had done several run-throughs, not knowing that the very next month we would use everything that we had learned.
Mm.
Well, all of that being said, what can I, as a member of the community, do to help with morale with our fire department? And for my police friend, I'm going to be asking you the same question too. So be thinking of a good answer. We're just huge fans of public service.
Well, we appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that that our little lecture did make an impact on your little one. That's excellent. Really, all we ask for is support. You know, we have people come down and make monetary donations. We have people that come down, especially around the holidays, and make food donations. Here on my shift anyway, we cook dinner we take turns cooking dinner through the 5 guys that are on shift. But around the holidays, we generally don't have to do a whole lot of cooking because there's always plenty of food around. And we certainly don't need any desserts because, my goodness, I have never seen so many cookies in my life. But in all honesty, as a citizen of the town or the area, we just ask for your support. Every year, with the exception of last year, we do a street dance, the Chesterton Fire Department street dance for the community. We have live music, and there's a beer garden and all that stuff. And that's a great way to come down and support us a little bit and get to have your kids come down. All the trucks are out, all the guys are around, and everybody's always willing to talk to the kids, especially, and answer any questions. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Any other questions? Oh, Maria, you got to unmute.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to ask about the baby box. We had donated for that 2 years ago, I believe, the Exchange Club. That is at the fire station still, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just wondered if it was still there, and is it used very often?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, but thankfully, we have not had it got opened one time allegedly on accident, but I think somebody was just messing around with it.
Okay.
But it has not been used for its intended purpose yet, which
Good.
is a good thing, and it goes both ways, I suppose. But it's there, and
Okay.
we test it every week, make sure everything's working properly. There's an alarm system when you open the door, and then there's a second alarm if anything is actually placed inside. So then that goes through the central dispatch office, and they let us know, so we know within a matter of minutes if anything's put in there. So.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
And I would just say to keep us in mind, if I know you guys have a lot of, under normal years, you have a lot of school kids that come through your program, but if you need extra money for any of the educational stuff, because I know some of the things that they do, because my mom's daycare would go through there every year, they would do the fire hose and knock down the little fire, and then they had the smokehouse. So if there are any other things, I know our club bought Sparky, the dog costume. So, so if there's things that you guys need and maybe you're running a little bit short on, we would love to be able to maybe help sponsor some of those educational things that you need. So just, think about us, because I know that you guys also let some of the other fire departments borrow those, like Liberty Township, when they're doing their educational week and so forth. So, we know that when we contribute, we're not only contributing to your fire department, but that you guys all work together. And certainly we'd like to be able to help any way we can.
Well, we appreciate that. And we do, we work together on fires. We have mutual aid agreements with all the surrounding departments, town of Porter, town of Burns Harbor, Liberty Township. City of Portage, even the city of Valpo, we have mutual aid agreements, meaning if we do have a big fire and we need extra help, we can call them and they'll come out. And then also, we have the smoke trailer that you guys have probably seen if you guys have been to any of our open houses.
Yes.
And we'll take that around to any department that asks for it.
Mhm.
I think Sparky's even been around to a couple of the other communities too. So I will certainly pass that information along to the chief's office and make sure that they keep you guys in mind though, if we're looking for something specific.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so much. One more last chance. Does anybody else have a question before we let Chad go for the evening? All right. Well, Chad, thank you so much. And we really appreciate your time. And like I said, you'll pass our information on to the chief. And if we can help in any other way, let us know. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too.
You're now a professional Zoom user. Thank you, Chad.
Semi-pro.
Semi-pro. Well, you did really good. So you're there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So Kevin, you are up. So Kevin, I would like to just have you give us a little background on, let's see if I can get, on who you are and how you kind of got started with your department.
Okay. Well, I guess my law enforcement career really started in high school. I did 2 years of criminal investigation and criminal justice vocational courses, which counted as college credits. I honestly couldn't tell you where my interest came from in it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of helping people. So that's kind of my favorite part of the job, realistically. So I knew from a young age, it's what I wanted to do, So after high school, I got my degree in criminal justice. I went to Indiana University Northwest for 4 years and got a criminal justice degree in it. And I kind of started off working little security jobs here and there, loss prevention in the stores. And then I kind of moved up. I got a job at the county jail for 4 years as a jail officer, which is a great stepping stone, of course. And then I kind of moved up and became a reserve officer for the town of Hebron for a couple of years. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I realized that the Porter Police Department is really where I wanted to be. It's a great department, great town, great environment, So I got hired as a reserve officer there for 2 years. And after 2 years, I thought my full-time shot would never happen. At this point, I'm 32 years old. At that point, I'm like, well, people don't really quit from the Porter Police Department. They retire from the Porter Police Department because it's such a great place to be. So finally, after 2 years of being a reserve officer, we had somebody retire. Well, of course, I jumped on the opportunity and I didn't really think I had a shot. I went against like 70 guys for one position.
Wow.
And lo and behold, after all my year-long testing process, I got the job. So that was October of 2016, and I've been there ever since and haven't regretted it since the day I started. It's just a great place to be.
So Kevin, give us a little bit of a background in terms of the types of calls. I mean, in terms of like percentage, like auto break-ins or speeding tickets, or, just kind of give us an idea of what you guys are dealing with on an annual basis.
The biggest thing I've noticed with the different types of calls is with, at least where I'm at as a police officer, it's very, very seasonal and it comes in waves. You'll have summertime where there's more traffic offenses, there's more beach traffic, there's more drownings, there's more, high-speed chases and those type of things. And then when you get into the fall time where the weather's colder, but not too cold, you'll have more of the vehicle break-ins. You'll have more of the, garage door break-ins and stuff like that, where it's cold enough to where the residents they're in their house at night, but not too cold to go out thieving. And my biggest thing with that is when people ask me, well, how can I prevent that? Lock everything up. Lock your cars. I'd say probably 90% of the vehicle break-ins we have, when we ask them, where's your vehicle locked? The answer is no. And I've had anywhere from pocket change to firearms to computers, anything you can imagine stolen out of vehicles simply because they weren't locked up. Same thing with garage doors. I don't know, we probably frustrate people sometimes because I'll go to a door at 2 a.m. and wake them up and tell them, hey, your garage door is open. And they may get irritated with me, but there are certain times a year we do that for a reason, because the thefts are just incredible. Like more than probably get reported. A lot of people don't even report them because they're like, well, you're never going to find my stuff, so there's no point. But just keeping lights on, locking your vehicles, keeping your garage door shut, that type of stuff will really, really make a big difference. And then when you get into the colder times of year, like now, that kind of stuff kind of calms down. The traffic stuff calms down a little bit, you know, but I've noticed lately this past month or two, our number of disturbances, domestic disturbances, have increased. You know, I mean, I've probably had 3 or 4 disturbance calls in the past week, which for a town like Porter, that's pretty significant, you know, because people are locked away. They're in their house. It's too cold to go outside, so they stay in the house. A lot of people, you know, alcohol gets involved, and then they get at each other's throats and they start fighting. So it's just kind of a seasonal thing with us. But I know we have this past summer, obviously our busiest time was beach season because the Illinois beaches were all closed, and we were just absolutely overwhelmed and just bombarded beyond belief. So, I mean, you know, we're talking to Chad about, you know, Chad mentioned how we kind of make fun of each other in a friendly way. You know, we all get along great. Just last year alone, we had 52 assists to our fire department. And they could believe it was 201 assists to EMTs. So I will honestly say that we probably couldn't do our job without them, and vice versa. I mean, it's literally just a revolving door with helping each other out. And, you know, I know this year alone, I believe our biggest influx with specific crimes was unemployment fraud was just through the roof this year, which I can only imagine because of COVID and people being off work. A lot of people were without money, and unemployment fraud for people who weren't, you know, didn't want to go through the unemployment process, or they didn't feel they were treated right, or what it may be. You know, the amount of fraud just went up significantly because of all of that combined.
So Kevin, how does that work? Because the fraud would be caught probably on the state level, right? So that they
Correct.
And then
yeah.
does the state contact where that individual lives, and then it's your responsibility to go to arrest them?
We have detectives who will get involved, and those are kind of touch and go with us. Would I personally be involved and go to that house and talk to that person? Probably not. It'd be more a state level type of issue. But I know we are informed of those type of situations, so we do log them as calls for service, if you will.
Okay.
But of the street officers responding to them houses and directly dealing with those charges, not necessarily. Those kind of come down after the trickle effect from the investigation. And a lot of times us as a street officers won't even have any involvement whatsoever in those.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what else. I know right around spring break time, and this is huge for some reason, the grandchild in jail scam, we call it. And they pry on elderlies. Elderly people get these phone calls, and what they'll do is these scam artists will go on social media. They'll get family information as much as they can, grandchild name or son name, whatever it may be, and make a phone call. And all it takes is a simple phone call. Hey, Grandpa, this is Johnny. I'm in jail. I had a little incident on spring break. Can you send me some money? And these elderly people are very oblivious to it, and they'll send money to these scammers. And then they'll find out the next day, little Johnny is not even in jail. You know, it's just incredible how creative they get. I had a call last week of a lady who just lost her dog on the 15th. So she, you know, posted about it on Facebook, how she lost her dog after 15 years and was very distraught about it. Well, she went on a website to order another dog. And on this website where they sell dogs was this beautiful little Dachshund, which is the same kind of dog she had just lost. So she started messaging. And this is a big sign that I try to pump it into everybody's head that I can talk to who buys things online. If you ever buy something online and they're asking you for gift card numbers to buy it, it is a complete scam. So this poor lady ended up sending this scam artist $800 in Walmart gift card PIN numbers for a dachshund puppy. Well, when the scam artist realized it was working and he was going to manipulate this lady like he did, it was, okay, well, now I need $200 more for the crate for the dog to be delivered. So she ran back to Walmart, got another $200 gift card, sent him the numbers on it. Great. Oh, okay, well, now I need another $150 for the dog's vaccines and a COVID vaccine, which doesn't exist for dogs. Well, she ran back to Walmart, did the exact same thing, sent the card number, gone. Well, now I need another $200 for a heated crate because it's cold out and you want your dog to be warm, correct? So she went back to Walmart and did the same thing again. Eventually she caught on and she called the Walmart gift cards and they had already been used. Well, she said to me, well, these gift cards were used in Alabama though. So, it couldn't be someone from a foreign country doing this. And it usually is, they're from a foreign country and they're just scamming people overseas because it's nearly impossible to ever catch these people. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And the elderly, they're very, very oblivious to the fact that when you buy something online with a gift card, whatever state it shows that gift card was used is probably just the distribution center where those items that person who took the card number purchased from and were sent to them overseas. So that's kind of the thing this time of year. Right around this time, we get a lot of this stuff going on where they pretend to be the IRS. They call you on the phone and say they're from the IRS. And if you don't pay us, you're going to have a warrant for your arrest. Well, that's completely false because the IRS will never call you if you owe money. You will always get a letter. It will never be a verbal phone call. So that's kind of a little bit of a rundown of the major calls we get throughout certain times of the year. But I will say in the town of Porter, our busiest time is summertime with the beach traffic. It is just incredible.
Yeah, we were not expecting the beach traffic this year. I work at Indiana Dunes Tourism, so I got to witness it firsthand. We were just not expecting it. We weren't expecting Chicago not to open, and it was, just so you guys know, the beach traffic was so bad in May that the national park reached out to us and asked us if we would help with law enforcement. So we were able to get a huge meeting put together with law enforcement from Porter County and LaPorte County. And thank goodness Sheriff Reynolds really reached out to all the other departments. And so we had a huge meeting over at the national park, including the state. The state police were involved in it. And so with the overall goal is to make sure by July 4th of last year that we had taken our beaches back. And so these extra departments, literally from Chesterton, Beverly Shores, Michigan City, all were giving their police officers over to Porter and West Beach and Michigan, and then Beverly Shores. A lot of the issues were taking place at Porter and at West Beach. And Porter, I mean, you guys were using all of your reserve money, where a lot of the other departments weren't using the reserve money because of COVID. So they didn't. They had extra reserves. So these other departments were literally using their reserve money to help out the other communities. And I think that's a true testament in terms of how much the communities work together. And I don't think people realize, that they will come and I think we're getting state police out of the Lowell district as our kind of oversees our district. And I think we're able to quite a bit get it a little bit better under control. But I don't know that it ever got any better for you guys.
It was miserable. I'm not going to lie.
No, and I don't know if you guys remember, but on Memorial Day weekend, they were parking in people's yards on 49. I thought maybe people were charging them, and that wasn't the case. They literally were just driving into people's yards to park there, using the visitor center as a parking lot. Multiple times last year, we became an actual parking lot for the state park. So it was literally a zoo. And the other thing is, Kevin, you guys service us because our visitor center is actually in the town of Porter. So you guys have always been just really great in terms of always driving around the visitor center to making sure everything's okay and respond to all of our calls. One of the things that you guys are training us, we're working with John Lane. And I know he's just retired, but he's also still working for you guys, right? For training purposes. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's doing like some IT stuff for the town and he's still around. I still see him every day.
Okay.
So I think as long as he can.
So he's training us in, oh my gosh, I wrote it down. Oh my gosh, human trafficking. So one of the things, because of the visitor center and because the national park is in our visitor center, that automatically triggers that Homeland Security actually had to come and evaluate the visitor center. And because of the volume of traffic that we have, and we have over 100,000 visitors annually, we are a level 2 on Homeland Security. So the lowest level is 1. And I think the highest level is 5. Well, we're a category 2 just because of the volume of the visitors, and then the fact that you have federal government in our building. But they said because of the location, and all these highway systems that are going through our area, they feel we're potentially a good stopping point for human trafficking. So like if they needed to stop and use the restrooms. So Homeland Security's actually recommended that we get trained. John Lane dropped us off the videos that he uses. There's 4 different videos, and I'll tell you, it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing because you just have no idea the grooming how they groom people, how they work to get kids, and it can happen on any level. So I didn't know if you had any information that you'd want to talk to our group about, because I think it is one of those things that so many of us are probably just completely oblivious as to it happening.
And I'd be lying if I told you I have a lot of experience with it, but I will say this: a lot, like you said, they're so groomed that sometimes you'll have no idea, no clue. But I did have a case last week at one of our hotels. A male called and said that a female he was in the hotel with woke up, stole his vehicle, and was gone. So here I am thinking I have a motor vehicle theft in my hands, So I go there, I'm talking to this guy, and we find out where his car is, and we, and my initial cop thought is, okay, well, we know who took it, we know where it's at. The female is going to be arrested for auto theft. It's common sense. And I guess this is where tunnel vision comes into play. And me personally wish I had more knowledge and experience with it to detect these types of situations before we lose track of it. But long story short, it turns out when they located the female in Lake Station who had the vehicle, turns out that they believe that she was a victim of human trafficking just based on statements she has made and the way she was acting. And she ended up going to the hospital for some drug issues that she was having at that very moment. But hospital said, we suspect she's a victim of human trafficking just based on their examinations and based on what she said and things like that. But they're so scared most of the time. They're so groomed that she denied it all and said, no. Whatever I said when I was impaired on drugs, it was false. I didn't mean it. And then she was gone. She disappeared from the hospital. So sometimes it's not that they don't want to be helped. They're just so scared to be helped because they're in such fear of their life. So, I mean, I know sometimes it's if it's a new victim of human trafficking, just like when I stop a vehicle, we're trained to look for certain things, signs of distress that may not be obvious, eye contact, certain eye movements, certain body gestures that can tell us that something's not right here. There's a male and female. The female is acting really scared. She's giving me this weird look out of her side eye, But the problem is, like in where you guys are at, it's if they're groomed well enough, we'll never really know, and that's what's so sad about it.
Well, and I think that's why they wanted our folks to be trained, because to know, at least kind of know what to look for. So last summer, I guess we had, I don't know if it was 3 men that came in. So you got to understand it's the middle of summer, so it's hot. And 3 men come in with black hoodies on, with the black hoods up, and they go immediately, they pass our front desk, they go immediately to the bathrooms, and they stagger themselves by the bathroom, and it just, nothing was right about that. And so one of our staff members did go up to him, but she didn't even think about human trafficking, but she knew something wasn't right. So we don't know if they were standing by the one door that you can't get in from the outside, but you can go out after you leave the restrooms, like to let the person in and make sure that they just used the bathroom and then they left, because she said there was nothing right about what they were doing. And she went up to him and asked him, can I help you? And they didn't want any help. And she just said, in July, you don't wear a hoodie. And all of them were matching, and they all had the hoodies on themselves. So she really wonders if by chance there was something with human trafficking.
Yeah, and we have to think as cops too. When we pull a vehicle over, lack of eye contact, acting nervous. Most of us, and that's just how we're trained. They think, maybe there's something in the vehicle we should know about. Maybe they have drugs. So our first reaction is to call for a canine to sniff the car or search the car. Well, we don't find anything. Well, I don't know why they're so nervous, but sometimes it's hard to stop and think, well, why was the female nervous? Why was she not making eye contact with you? Why was she shaking? Why? So it's very alarming, because it's sometimes you have to think outside the box more than we do sometimes,
One of the things so we had an incident this I think it was this summer or fall. And we're always kind of hesitant to call the police. And so I think something for all of us as members to realize, the police are always wanting you to err on being more safe
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
not to call them. And I think we've got to be more mindful. So a situation that happened, I think it was this summer or this fall, a young traveler was here. She was female. She's in her early 20s, and an older gentleman came in and immediately went up to her and said, "Hey," he saw that she was going to buy a T-shirt, and he went up to her and said, "Hey, you look like the size of one of my grandkids. Can you tell me, what size you wear?" And so I think she was trying to help him. But then he ended up getting like really close to her and getting her, and it's COVID. So you need to be 6 feet apart. So he's automatically violating the COVID rule, and he's got her kind of up against the wall. So one of our front desk staff person said, you need to back off, sir. Well, the next thing she knew, he was back at talking to her, and now he's touching her thigh. And so, she got stronger. Our staff person did, and just said, "Sir, I'm not going to tell you again, back off." And she did. But we didn't know if she handled everything properly on that. So a couple of things, though, he overheard the conversation that she wanted to go hiking. And so he knew that she was going hiking. He could have potentially heard the trails we were sending her to. He tried to recommend certain trails as well. So what John had advised us, he said the moment he touched her thigh, that we definitely should have been calling the police. And then the other thing he had suggested is that we try to keep her in the visitor center, and that somebody watch that he actually left and then direct her to different trails. Because he said that, he goes, you have to look at the worst case scenario. Was he trying to direct her to a trail where he then could do something to her? She was traveling by herself, and then or was he going to wait in the parking lot and then follow her after she left?
Right.
So there was a bunch of scenarios that could have played out. And so, John advised us, please, at the end of the day, do not call the police, because we're trying to determine what's 911 worthy. And he wants us to actually go directly to, the other thing we learned is to go directly to your department. He wants us to bypass 911 and to call Porter Police direct, because we will get the quickest dispatch by going directly to the police department versus a 911 call.
Yeah, because 911 calls go through the county dispatch first, and then they have to transfer it. So there's even that 10 seconds difference could mean the world, So you call the direct line, you're going straight to our dispatcher, who has the key to us. They're literally our lifeline. Our dispatcher is just as critical as we are, because they get that information to us within seconds. So that extra timeline means a big difference.
Well, and they even said with the panic button, we're delaying response time with our panic button. The other thing,
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I know with the alarm companies.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming it goes to an alarm company. I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's always delay there too, and so yeah.
Well, and the other thing they advise us as well is even if you could just get, so Porter Police is on our speed dial, and everybody has been trained on how to get directly in to you guys initially. And they said the other thing is, even if you can't even talk, or you're going to say just say something gibberish, they said we will know something's not right, even if you just call the number and you say nothing, or if you start asking weird stuff to us, that's kind of like a clue to us that something is not right, and we will respond, right away. So I think my encouragement is, you guys don't err like we did, where we're like, oh, we don't think this is a 911 worthy call or a police call. We probably should have called the police, but at the end of the day, John said our person did a really good job, but what we're starting to do is train them a little bit further. All of us to kind of think through some of the other scenarios.
I always tell people, when well, I'm sorry to call you. I said, don't ever apologize. Even if we show up and it's absolutely nothing, chances are I'm looking for something to do, and I'd rather be there on the side of caution rather than we'll just not call and then something happens. So no, people don't ever need to feel hesitant to call us, no matter what.
The other thing, Kevin, you mentioned in the last couple of weeks, and I had imagined that this would have been the same thing as last year with COVID. You're talking about a lot of domestic calls recently. Were there more domestic calls last year when everybody was just kind of had to be in constant lockdown? And did you see an increase last year because of that?
I would say yes. Let's see. I'm looking at our stats now. with disturbances, we had 40 physical disturbances, which for the town of Porter is pretty significant, within a year, and 58 verbal disturbances. Verbal disturbances, sure, they're just verbal, they're just arguments, but I can't tell you how many times we show up. It starts off verbal, and then on our way there, dispatch tells us, well, it's now becoming physical. So I would say if you add those two totals up, you're looking at over 100 disturbances in a year in a small town like Porter. That's pretty significant, So I would say absolutely, while people were locked away and couldn't be out and they were cooped up with each other, definitely an increase for sure.
And in my final question, I'm going to open it up to everybody else. What are some of the calls that concern you the most? I've heard from other police officers that domestic violence can be scary calls to encounter because you don't know what you're going to get. But is it domestic violence, or is there any other particular calls that you guys are more nervous about in terms of your safety?
Well, I guess I can speak from a personal standpoint. Domestic disturbances, absolutely, because you never know where those are going to go. But one that sticks with me the most ever since I started was wellness checks. Family wants a well-being check on an individual because they're having suicidal thoughts, or they're making suicidal comments, or they haven't heard from them in a week and they're worried. So they want us to go there and just check on them, make sure they're okay. Well, in my 4.5 years as a full-time police officer, the only time I've had a gun pointed at me was on a well-being check. Somebody whose family was concerned they were suicidal. I opened the door, or they opened the door, try shutting the door on me when they see who I am. So I stopped the door because I'm there to check on them. Within a second, I had a gun probably 8 feet from my face. So I guess it just depends on, a lot of that comes with experience. And a lot of guys have never had that. A lot of guys, you show up to a verbal disturbance, well, it's just an argument. Well, verbal disturbance, and then they see the police and they're intoxicated. They don't like us. Now their aggression turns towards us. So we have a different issue on our hands. So I guess it just depends on where you've been. But I think one of my main concerns, just as a whole in society around here lately, is the amount of drug use. I know last year we had 160 overdoses, I believe. Let me look at that, make sure I'm correct on that.
And that was in Porter?
Maybe I'm thinking wrong here. But we had a disturbing amount. Let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm way off on that. 7 overdoses. But that's you're counting overdoses where somebody was either had passed away from the overdose or had to be hospitalized for it. Just 7. But you go to a town like Chesterton, it seems like this year they had them, weekly, they were responding to heroin overdoses. It was just crazy. I'm sorry, 160 was our miscellaneous calls directly below overdoses. That's why I have my numbers wrong. But I feel like 7 is very low. I don't know how accurate that really is, because I alone probably responded to 7 myself last year, which may not seem like a lot, but if that many people are putting drugs in their body that's killing them, that's a scary thought.
Well, no, and that's not the people that are putting drugs in, or that are, that they're still doing drugs, but they're just not overdosing, right?
Yeah, or they're selling it to somebody else who doesn't live in Porter and overdoses somewhere else with it. Because sure, we only had 7 that are documented, but we're a small town, so those drugs come from inside Porter, and now they're in Chesterton or Burns Harbor or Michigan City or Gary. So it's just scary how this stuff gets dispersed around the region. And you may go to somewhere like Gary, they probably had 150 overdoses.
And is it heroin? I mean, is that the main drug we're still having the issue with, or is it a combination?
I would say overdose wise, it's heroin. Yeah. We have dealt with people on different drugs, such as, you get our meth and stuff like that, but that's not usually something we see as an overdose. And if it is, it's laced with heroin. They'll put fentanyl in their heroin or meth in their heroin, and the combination of the two just shuts your body down, and they just want that high so bad that eventually for some people, the heroin is not enough. They have to have something else in that heroin to get the high they want, not even thinking about the fact that this could kill me. Sometimes they don't care. And that's scary.
And what's the age range, and is it both male and female equally?
I would say in my experience, it's equally male and female, probably between the age of 18 and 30. I know the last one Chesterton had was like 19 years old, 19-year-old female with her whole life ahead of her. It's it's crazy. And when I was in high school, I mean, granted, you're talking, I graduated in 2002, but you know, if you were known as somebody who did drugs, it was considered marijuana. You know, nowadays marijuana is just, shoot, it's like smoking a cigarette to these kids now. You know, it's nothing, but you shoot a needle in your arm, and that's the high they want, you know.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, but I want to give everybody a chance to ask, because I could talk to you all night. So I want to make sure I give everybody a chance to ask questions, because just because I know there's a lot of questions, and I think sometimes we lose sight of some of the things that are happening in our own community, and I think it's important to be aware of all of this. So I'm going to open it up to the rest of you if you have any questions for Kevin. And just remember, if you do have a question, to please unmute your microphone. So Marcia and Paula are unmuting. So let's go to Paula first, and then we'll go to Marcia.
Well, Kevin, I just want to say thank you, because I live in the town of Porter, and you're absolutely right. We have a fabulous police department.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I
I used to be on the town council, and then I was clerk treasurer, so I know Jamie and
oh yeah,
John Lane and Joe, and
Great.
great guys, great department. So welcome to town, and we're happy to have you here.
Thanks.
And on a side note, you were talking about you guys looking for clues.
Mm-hmm.
When my son was little, he accidentally called 911 and John Lane showed up at the door, and he thoroughly looked me over and asked me questions, and
Yeah.
to make sure that it indeed was a mistake call. So
Yep.
I appreciate.
If we get an accidental 911 call, us calling back and saying, "Are you okay?" and someone saying, "Yeah, I'm fine," that to me that means nothing. Because how do I run a gun to your head? Are you a victim right now? So we will respond. We will come in that house, and we will make sure everything's okay.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you guys do, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Paula. And then Marcia, I saw that you unmuted as well.
I did. So thank you so very much for your service. Once again, I am a Porter resident, and
Cool.
I love our police. Um, did you see an increase in child abuse cases? One of our primary issues is child abuse, and that was something that concerned me, because when I worked in an elementary school, kids would tell us what was happening at home when they came into the school, but with the schools locked down, I wondered often, who did those kids have to turn to?
So
That's
it looks
a great
like
question.
2021, we only had one case of child abuse reported. And I'll honestly say, I don't think I took one single child abuse report, which is good and bad, I guess, because it's good. Clearly, that's not the kind of cases you want, but it makes you wonder, because we all know what happens. We all it's, are the kids scared to report it? So that's a scary thought for sure, that we only had one the whole year, actually. I mean, you can see it as
very low.
Yeah, you can see it as a positive, but at the same time, we all know the reality of it all is it happens more than we think. So that goes back to looking for clues. When I go to a house, sorry, my 4-year-old called 911. Most of the time, it's just an accident. We understand that, but you never know. You always wonder, was it an accident, or was this child asking for help? And now that we're there, he's scared. And another thing that kind of just reminded me of, I'm sorry, but kind of grinds our gears sometimes, is when we're out in public and we see kids with their parents. And you'll hear a lot of police officers agree with this, and a lot of them are just kind of nervous to say it. It really, really bothers us when we hear people tell their kids, that policeman's going to take you to jail. Because then that's their first reaction when they see the police is, don't talk to that police officer, you're going to go to jail. So I think sometimes small children see us, and that's what they see us as, is an authority figure who can tell them what to do and take them to jail. They don't always get taught that we're there to help. Always go to a police officer, always call us for help, So I think that's huge as parents, to teach our kids that police were the good guys, and we're supposed to be the positive influence in the community. So
That's really good. I never thought about it. When my mom and Maria, you know this, when we do the fire department tours, they put the full equipment on because they know that when they have the full equipment on, it scares kids. And so they really want them to know that when they have the equipment come on and if they have to go into the house to rescue the child, they don't want their child to run away, right? They want them to come to the firemen,
Yeah.
but never thought about the fact that parents are using police to get their kids in
Yeah.
line, not knowing what they're doing on the long term.
Yeah, they're not doing it on purpose. You know, it's
Right.
just better behave. And I understand that. We're all, you know, I have kids, I get that. But, you know, I never really realized that either until I became a police officer. And at first I found it funny. But then as some of the senior guys were like, hey, you know, we don't like when parents say that to the kids because we've had situations where the kids are scared of us because they're taught that, you know. So I'm like, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
thought about that, you know.
That's
So,
a great aha moment right there.
yeah.
Maria, you're unmuted, Maria. Did you have
Yeah.
a question?
I don't really have a question. I just have a statement. I'm very proud of you, Kevin. Kevin is a former kindergarten student of mine, and I couldn't be prouder. So thank you for serving our community and come to
Absolutely.
us anytime. And tell your kids that I also had in school, hello. Tell the boys
I
hello.
will. I will. Thank you.
Well, and I want to echo what Paula said. You know, we moved here into the town of Porter for the visitor center since in 2016, and we've had a lot of calls where that you guys have had to respond. And we used to do things like forget to lock the door, and so visitors were walking in at 1 a.m. and Porter police were being called. And then
Yeah.
we've had the alarm go off. Usually they're false. Somebody didn't know how to get it turned off. So I have met Porter police here many a nights. And so I don't know, Kevin, if I've ever met you here, because I know we've called out a lot of you here. And
Nice, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
okay, so I have come looking pretty interesting at times when you get the 11 or 12 o'clock and I'm the responder. So, but seriously, I can't say enough for just what you guys have done. We always feel really good because we know you guys are constantly circulating around our building just to make sure it's safe. But before we let Kevin go again, I just want to make sure anybody else has any other questions. We want to make sure we have a time to answer all those. Yes, Marcia.
What can we do as a community to be supportive to you?
I think I'll just go back to what I said. I guess when it comes to children, you know, kind of teach them that we're here to help. You know, I mean, and just good parenting in general. You know, I've learned I've had instances with kids, teenagers these days where you know there's whether it be smoking or they're drinking underage or whatever it may be, and we have to call the parents, and the parents are like, well, where are you at? I'm like, well, I'm 5 minutes where you are. Okay, well, ask him if he can find a ride home. Well, I'm calling you because your child is doing something illegal, and I'm trying to be nice and get the parent involved rather than go the other route. And it's just, I mean, just teaching right and wrong. Nowadays, it seems like that's a big problem we're having, is just kids not being taught right and wrong and being taught discipline. And you know, I don't know if parents are afraid to do it these days or what it may be, but because it starts at a young age. I mean, if these kids are taught at a young age that you can do what you want and there's not going to be any repercussions for it, now we're dealing with them when they're adults, and it's 10 times worse. You know, that, and just protect yourself. You know, lock your doors, keep lights on outside at night, especially in the warm months, and just teach your kids proper safety. Like the incident you spoke of at the visitor center, teach them stranger danger. You know, it's as corny as it sounds, to this day it still stands as a good motto: stranger danger. You know, don't talk to strangers, don't. And maybe I'm getting off track here a little bit, but in the long run, it's going to benefit the community as a whole. You know, if everybody sticks together and is mindful of these type of things.
Well, it's
But just-
interesting you said stranger danger, Kevin, because we used to sponsor, so Dave, like Dave Atkins, who is a police officer at Chesterton, used to be in our club, and we sponsored the stranger danger program, and he would go into all the schools, just like we do with body safety. And he would do the stranger danger program, and you would be shocked. We would do the entire program, and then Dave would quiz the children and say, am I the police? And, you know, Dave being himself saying, I'm a police officer, so I'm not a stranger. Is that correct? And they're all like, right, you're a police officer. You're not a stranger. And that's a failure because everybody is a stranger. And it's interesting how easily you can trip up a child. One tip, a lot of parents would put their get backpacks that are personalized for their kids, and the names would be on the back of them. And it's just very easy to say, hey, Maria, your mom told me to pick you up today. And the kid doesn't realize they're picking up the name. So there's just all these little tricks that they play. And again, another great program. We haven't done it in a while, and it may be something that we should consider in the future, because I think it's another really valuable training tool for young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do, not so much lately because of COVID, obviously, but we're always, me personally, I love doing it, and I'm kind of the go-to guy for it all now. I love doing school visits. I love doing visits at the police station to show them around, show them the cars. And, you know, I kind of took over that role this past year or two, really. So anytime, any ideas or any input, reach out. You know, I'm more than happy to add some stuff to my agenda of what to teach these kids and things that you've seen that maybe I haven't seen that they need to learn about, you know, so.
Well, that'd be great, especially knowing that not only teaching stranger danger, but also getting kids understanding that you're a friend of theirs, right? Not to be afraid of you, and that you're the person to go to, you know, when they need help and stuff. So
Yeah.
this has been really good. Well, I'm going to let, and Kevin, also the same thing that I said to Chad, you know, I know we gave a small check to you, but you know, if there's something that we could help you with, so as you are doing educational programs, and if there's some supplies that you need that, you know, maybe we could help you with, you know, just at least, you know, reach out to us, and, you know, sometimes maybe we can team up with other clubs, you know, like Kiwanis if it's a bigger amount, but, you know, at least reach out to us, because we'd like to be able to help whatever way we can as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, unless there is any other questions, again, Kevin, thank you. You did a great job. I really appreciate your taking time out of your schedule this evening. And again, please keep in touch with us. I know you know how to get a hold of Maria, and you have my email address as well, because I got the photo that you sent earlier today. He got our check, our donation check. And so I got that off to Marcia as well. So thank you guys all. And thank you, Kevin, for your time. And I wish everyone a good evening and have a happy weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Okay, club members, that was a great meeting. Again, Maria, thank you so much for doing all the setup for that. I know that, you know, you have to communicate with multiple people. And I think, Maria, did we give 150 to each of the police departments and 150 to the fire, or did one get more than the other? You're on mute, Maria. You're on mute.
We gave 150 to the police stations because there were only 3, and we had $500 total. And then we did a little bit less because we had 4 fire departments to divide the
Okay.
money by. So it was a little bit less.
And if we know in the future, if they have specific needs, you know, we can make some different, you know, decisions in terms of what we are going to do, but at least we've given them something that can help out with with their programming. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Kathy Cox. Kathy's from the state level. She's from the Portage Club. So it's always exciting to have you join us, Kathy, and see some of the things that we're doing. And Kathy, you're on mute, but if you wanted to say anything before we take off. You're still on mute, Kathy.
Oh, she.
I don't know if I can get her off of mute.
There she is.
There. How's that?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
on?
good. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you did a very good job of these kind of meetings, and I'm trying to encourage more clubs throughout the district, and especially our area, of doing this kind of thing, because even though we're meeting in Portage, we're still meeting with a very small percentage of the people that we have in our club. And this is a good way to keep people interested and keep people up on things. And I learned something tonight that I didn't ever know before. I had an incident this summer where I had a very bad accident in my yard, and I called 911, and it took them 25 minutes almost to get there, because I'm in Porter County, but on the very edge of Porter County. And they sent Porter County people when they could have sent Lake County people or the local police, and got there before this guy bled to death in my yard.
Mm.
And so I learned something at this.